All righty. We're going to go ahead and get started since it's 10 o'clock already. Um, I'll just be allowing people in as they start logging on. Good morning. This is lesson 2 of balanced living. If you were not here for lesson 1 um, or session 1, we talked about time management and some strategies to kind of work with our time and our hectic schedules. Today, we're going to be focusing on stress management. If you look at the chat, I have put a link for the handouts, and I tried the link, and it did open up the handouts. So I hope it works this time. I made sure that it wasn't restricted. If not, I'll have to email them to you again, and I apologize in advance, but it should work. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. Let me see here. All right, there we go. Okay. So does anybody, I know it's kind of early and we're kind of shy, but you can write on the chat, and I'm going to try my best to keep up with chat and letting people in and all that good stuff. I'm going to try my best, I promise. But you can always unmute yourself, and I mean, we're a small group, so we should be okay. Does anybody remember some of the strategies we talked about in time management last week? Anybody remember what was suggested in the curriculum that would be helpful to us? You can put it on the chat if you remember. Making a list. Thank you, Anna. Absolutely. So making a list is really, really important. And it was interesting to see that a lot of people don't make like a to-do list. And it's not a bad thing. Everybody has their own way of managing time. The only strategy, the reason that that is suggested is sometimes if we have so much on our plate that it would be very, very easy to forget little things that we have to do. You know, we make our priority list and we may have some super important things that must be done, and we keep overlooking other smaller things that maybe are not as crucial, but that still need to get done, right? Like maybe, I don't know, I got to call the people who fumigate my house. That's the thing I have to do because for some reason I'm getting critters after they fumigate it. So it's not as important, but I got to do it. So it's on my to-do list today. If not, I will forget and it'll be like 2 months from now and I won't get it done, right? Janice mentioned it's okay to say no. Super, super important to know that your time is valuable, that we need to teach other people to respect our time. And as you know, we're good people and we want to help out as much as we can. However, if we don't learn to say no, people can sometimes take advantage. And that includes our family members, our spouses, our children, our parents. That includes them too. Okay. So it's okay to say no. And if they need a reason why, then it's okay to give it to them. Say, you know what, I've got other commitments, or I'm going to stress out, I'm going to feel overwhelmed if I add on more to my responsibilities for that day. Okay, so absolutely. One thing that was mentioned was to make a list of priorities in order of priorities, and then make a list of what really takes up most of our time. And if the two don't jive, right, if they don't match up, then we have to reevaluate how we're spending our time. If we're wasting time doing stuff that isn't a priority to us, then we may want to look at why are we spending so much time doing those things if they're not of priority. Why is it like just busy work instead of important work, right? So, and how can we navigate? So making a list is absolutely important. So they talked about a master list, and then they talked about a daily to-do list, right? And so that master list is maybe like your goals in the next few months, and then your to-do list is for that particular day. And so those are strategies, guys. Again, some people don't operate with lists. I know many, many people who don't, and that's fine. If it works for the individual, that means they have a good memory. For me, I have to write it down because I do have a lot of stuff going on and I will forget. I promise. If I don't put it on my phone as a reminder, I probably will forget unless it's like a meeting with my boss or something, right? So there's that. Today, we're going to be talking about stress management. So that is also something that if we're able to manage our time, our stress level should theoretically reduce. Okay. So I put on the chat the link to the handouts, but if you have a phone, you can use your camera and use the QR code to get the handouts. Okay. Beautiful. I'm letting people in as we speak. So there we go. Again, in this series, we talked about balancing our time. Today, we're talking about managing our stress. And then we're going to be talking about feeding our body, moving our body, which means exercise, feeding our bodies, about nutrition, and then resting, how important rest is. And sometimes we put that at the bottom of our priority list, rest, because we have so much to do and we think we'll be okay. But our body really does react to the lack of stress. So that is important in living a balanced life. So today we're going to try to understand, and I say try, understand the basics of stress, identify stress, evaluate it, and develop some stress coping strategies. Everybody's different. So what works for me may not work for you. What works for Juanita may not work for Janice, etc. Okay, so we have to look for our own stress management. Okay, I'm going crazy with that. There we go. So what are some areas that stress Americans out? So here are a few, right? Money. I mean, that's always a source of stress. If we don't have enough money to pay our bills, or we're running out of money and we have an emergency, like the car broke down, or, our pipe bursted, or whatever the case, right? We ended up in the hospital and now we're on leave without pay. Money is usually a source of stress if we don't have enough of it to fulfill our financial obligations. Work, I think it wasn't Juanita. Who was it? She's not here. Was it Guadalupe? I think was mentioning last week. She was just having a lot of work assigned to her, a lot, and she feels that sometimes it's not okay to say no because she's being asked to do it by maybe her supervisor. So that can stress us out. Personal and family health. When we're sick or we have a loved one who is sick, of course, that's going to create stress for us. Family and relationships. If we're fighting with somebody, we're not talking to our brother, or our kid is angry with us, or the kids are fighting amongst each other, whatever the case may be, right? Relationships. Or we're not talking to our spouse because they're being annoying, whatever the case. Or our personal safety, if there's anything threatening our personal safety. So those are some of the things that may cause us stress. Is there anything that you guys can think of in addition to this that may cause people stress? Anything that you guys can think of besides what's there? I can tell you one thing that stresses my mother out. I mean, I can only say the weather. The weather. If there's going to be bad weather, that's going to be like all she can talk about. And you know how it's been raining a lot? So for some reason, for her, the weather is a thing. We're going to talk about things we can control and things we cannot control. The weather's definitely one we cannot control. And anything that you guys feel that could be stressful besides what's on the list? Or is that pretty much an all-inclusive list?
The COVID resort, that they're starting all over, and it's all you hear in the news, so that makes you stressed.
Yes, that is definitely one, and it's new for the books, right? Because obviously we hadn't gone through a pandemic like this in ever, I think. I mean, us, that since we've been alive. But definitely, we just, when we think we're out of the woods, we hear the news and we hear all these new cases of the variant, whatever. So of course we feel like, oh my God, I'm finally out here without a mask because I'm vaccinated. And now do I need to put it back on? Do I not put it back on? Why are people getting so close to me? And yeah, some people are like, you know what? I think I'm not going to go to restaurants for a while again. And for those of us who have kids, do they go back in person? Do they not go back in person? So we start thinking about those type of things, right? Things that that may hurt our safety, personal, that's about personal safety, because it could affect our health, right? So whether they're legitimate or not, the fact that it lives in our brain, like people say, perception is reality, guys. Okay, so you may say, "I calm down. It's not no pasa nada. Nothing's happening." But if it's happening in your brain, it's happening in your life, right? And it's affecting you. So we got to be aware of that. So absolutely, COVID is definitely one of them. So understanding stress. Stress is the belief that demands are greater than our abilities. Okay, that's what stress is. That's why you see some people stress out over everything, and other people are very relaxed and they're like, calm down. I did that last week and it was fine. Because not everything stresses the same people out, right? Like me giving a presentation doesn't stress me out. And I have some coworkers that are super shy. So when they have to present, they're like, oh my God, they're all stressed out. Their stomach hurts, their head hurts, and they're like, can you start first? They get real nervous. That's the way it is. You know, I have other stressors. Okay. That not being one of them. So we have to be respectful of what stresses some people out and maybe not us. And it may come from a situation or a thought. Okay. So sometimes we're put into a situation where that creates stress, or sometimes literally, guys, it really may be just in our head. Okay. We're worrying, like my mom, she's worried about the weather. And it's like, well, one, we can't control it. I'll give you an example. We took her, she's 80. Okay. So bear with her. We took her to Port Aransas. She didn't want to go because it was going to rain 2 weeks in advance. And I'm like, how do you know it's going to rain? Well, because it's been raining a lot. Okay. We're like, you know what? We're going to go. So we took her. Did it rain? Yes. It rained about 10 minutes. 10 minutes it rained. The rest of the time, the weather was amazing. Had I done what she wanted, we wouldn't have gone. We wouldn't have had an amazing time. And it's something you cannot control. Now, if there was a hurricane, I get it, but a little rain, we're not made out of sugar. We're not going to melt. And I'm like, mother, you cannot control the weather. We can control how we respond to the weather, which is when it started raining, we went inside what we rented. Other than that, we had an amazing time. So we have to be mindful of, is it the situation or is it the thought in our head? Are we the worrier? Oh, I'm a worrier. I'm just a worrier. So there's short-term stress, guys, and then there's long-term stress. So be aware that sometimes short-term stress, it's immediate, it's perceived a threat. So immediate could be like, you know what, I'm going to do a presentation. I'm super nervous, but you know what? Once you do the presentation, you're fine. Woo, it went better than I thought, right? It's cool. We're good. Or you may go to a situation where you feel like, oh my God, things are going to go wrong. You perceive it's going to go wrong. Once you get through that situation, it passes. Usually short-term stress can be good. It helps us kind of put on our batteries and kind of try harder, and we kind of get excited. It makes life a little exciting, short-term stress. It'd be boring if we didn't have it. However, long-term stress, we may not feel the effects so strongly, like the heart beating, the tummy, butterflies, whatever. But in the long run, if it's long-term stress, guys, this can create the physical problems, okay? Like heart problems, or some people even, believe it or not, develop diabetes and other chronic diseases due to just this long-term stress that we've had for years. So we have to be mindful of that. So the stress response. The stress causes your body to release hormones. So these two hormones, guys, have you ever heard of a stress gut? They call it a stress gut. So a stress gut is basically when your body releases hormones, and believe it or not, our abdominal girth kind of extends a little bit. So some people, that's why they're like, oh, I'm not fat. It's just a stress gut. I mean, you laugh, but sometimes it could partially be true. Okay. So your adrenaline, the first one, that's cool because it makes you kind of like faster, stronger, wittier. It's kind of like maybe you've seen on TV when there's an accident and there's like a person who lifts a car to save people. And they're like, how did that one person lift a car to save those people? Like it was like superhuman strength, right? It's the adrenaline pumping. It's like the fight or flight. Am I going to save myself, save other people? Or, we want to survive. So the adrenaline kind of helps, okay, when it's a short-term stressor. The cortisol, though, as it gets released, it affects our sugar levels. It affects a lot of different parts of our body, our heart rate. So we have to be very mindful. Okay, but those two hormones are released when we're under stress. Short spurts, we're going to be fine. But if that stress is continuous, like maybe children who have lived in a home where there's a lot of abuse, okay, or or maybe even adults who are in a very abusive relationship or stressful relationship, things like that. So we have to be mindful because that long-term stress is what's going to impact us, our health. So positive stress, again, it's short term. It can boost our immune system. It may improve our mental and physical performance. We're like, okay, I gotta get my, batteries on. I gotta do this. And you perform even better than you thought because your heart is pumping and your mind is racing and you're gonna do this. Again, the chronic exposure to negative stress, and by chronic we mean long term, is what's gonna be possibly damaging to our health. So what are some steps for managing our stress is, first of all, we have to identify the symptoms, okay, and the sources of our stress. What would you guys consider a symptom of stress? What is a symptom? What do you think? What would be a symptom of stress? What do you guys think? What? Headache. Absolutely, Anna. Headache is one of them. What else?
Anxiety.
You feel kind of like anxious, like you don't know what to do with yourself, right? Okay. What else? What about stomach issues? Stomach. Some people get constipated when they're super stressed, or some people get diarrhea when they're super stressed. It could go either way. And because stress, guys, it does mess with your digestive system, believe it or not. So some people will go days without going to the restroom. Fatigue, Janice. Yes. Your mind is on overload and you just feel like, oh my God, I am like, I've had it. I do not have the energy to deal with this anymore, right? Absolutely fatigue. So that is definitely, we need to identify. And again, everybody's symptoms are different. Everybody's sources are different. We have to identify the sources and symptoms. We need to evaluate the stress. How strong is it? How much is it weighing on me? And then develop effective strategies to cope with this stress. Okay, so we're going to look at that. So some symptoms of the stress, of course, can be physical, like the headaches, right? The tummy ache, all that. Emotional, we want to cry or we're moody. We're in the worst mood ever, right? We're like, our kids talk to us and we're like, what do you want? And they think we're mad at them and it's not even about them, right? We're angry at our boss who's been giving us a lot of assignments, and our kids asking us to do one more thing just kind of send us over the top. Sometimes it's behavioral. Sometimes we'll there's people who punch holes in walls because they're so stressed and they act out, right? Or they start yelling at people, they're fighting with somebody in the line at HEB. It's behavioral. Sometimes it's intellectual. They just can't function. They can't think straight anymore. Okay, some people develop nervous habits. Maybe they start biting their nails, right? Maybe they develop a nervous tic. Maybe they start stress eating, or maybe they stop eating. Okay. Health problems. We develop migraines, for example, right? Maybe we start with problems that are in the digestive system and we have to keep going to the doctor to get medication for those problems, heartburn, things like that. Maybe our blood pressure starts going up. So if we don't start putting our issues in perspective, we're gonna struggle health-wise and we're gonna end emotional-wise, okay? So this is the first handout, guys, that is, oh, okay, Anna said sometimes stress, yes, can cause her to break out in a rash. Yeah, stress causes hives, absolutely. I know a lot of people that they break out in hives. I break out in acne. It's weird, it's like, acne, yep, I break out, like I have adult acne when I'm stressed out. Absolutely. It could be because I'm eating more junk food because I'm stressed out. It could be that, I'm not sure. But look at handout number 1, guys. I added them here just so we can follow along. So here are some of the physical signs of stress. People mentioned it: headaches, backaches, muscle tension. You know how we're like, oh, my neck, my shoulders, you feel tension. Upset stomach, diarrhea or constipation, nausea, like you want to throw up, dizzy spells, insomnia, you're not able to sleep well, like you keep waking up, chest pain or rapid heart rate, weight gain or weight loss, Skin breakouts, like Anna was mentioning, that's exactly it. Look, I didn't even know it said acne, to be honest, but acne or rashes, loss of sex drive, frequent colds. Like, and that is a big one, guys. Some people say, why am I always getting a cold? Sometimes when we're stressed, our immune system goes down. So we catch whatever's out there versus when we're healthy and happy, our body just kind of fights it off well because our immune system is strong. So those are some of the physical ones. Look at some of the cognitive, which are the brain, difficult, difficulty remembering things, indecisiveness. You can't make decisions. It's just hard to make a decent decision, unable to concentrate, trouble thinking clearly, poor judgment, like you make like bad decisions, negativity, like our attitude will be real negative, like, oh my God, everything's bad, or I hate my job, or my kids are horrible, or I'm the worst parent ever. That's negativity. Um, like Juanita mentioned, anxious or racing thoughts, like you feel that sense of anxiety and your brain is just going 100 miles an hour, constant worrying. You don't even know why you're worried, and you just sometimes pick a thing and you start obsessing over it. Inability to be objective and look at the bright side. Fearful anticipation. Well, now what? Now what's going to happen? Guys, never ask what else can go wrong. Don't ask that question because something can always go wrong again. So, but there's people, well, now what? Or people will say, ah, well, it figures. That always happens to me. Kind of like you already expect your life to be not so good. And that's just negative thinking. Like they say, stinking thinking. Mood in emotional, you get moody, agitated, restless. Like some people get real hyper, because they're so anxious. Short-tempered, you get irritable or impatient. You're not able to relax. You feel tense or overwhelmed, helpless or hopeless, like there's no end to these problems. I can't read the bottom of that thing. Oh my gosh, I can't read it because I have this thing here. Let me see if I can move it. Yeah, there we go. Loneliness or isolated, depressed or unhappy. Those are emotional. And some people, unfortunately, their their anxiety may absolutely lead to depression and to depression. Like that anxious feeling all of a sudden converts into depression and sadness. Betty Salas was mentioning these symptoms could also be menopause, old age, and diabetes. Oh, girl, amen. Yes, absolutely. Our hormones are raging, right? When we're hitting menopause, or even if it's not menopause, guys, when it's that time of the month, sorry if there's gentlemen in here, but you're going to hear it. That way you understand the ladies in your life, absolutely old as you get older, or yeah, when you have some certain chronic diseases like diabetes. I know with menopause, if you've gone through that, your body's reacting, your mind is reacting, your emotions are reacting because it's all hormonal, right? That time of the month is the same, pretty much the same thing, right? But just saying menopause is probably times 10, like your period times 10, I would think. Um, but you're right, Betty. Behavioral. Maybe you're so overwhelmed that you start procrastinating. I have so much, you know what? Forget it. To hell with it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do anything. And then you just don't achieve your goals or what you've set out to do. Eating more or less. I know some people who lose a lot of weight under stress. Um, I gain a lot of weight under stress. I'm a nervous eater. Sleeping too much or too little. Some people just want to sleep and not deal with things. Some people can't sleep. Developing nervous habits, like we talked about, isolating yourself. You just want to withdraw and not deal with anybody or anything. Picking fight with others. Using alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs to relax. Let me tell you, the incidence of drinking during the pandemic skyrocketed. Liquor stores did not suffer during the pandemic at all. That was one business that didn't suffer. People were drinking more, and not just drinking more frequently, but drinking in excess each time they drank. Because we were stuck home, we didn't have to get up that early the next day. We were working from home, or if we got laid off, right? So the drinking went up significantly. Teeth grinding or jaw clenching, right here, overdoing activities, or overreacting, you know. So those are some of the things. What is recommended in the curriculum for us to do is to, because you do have these handouts, is for you to highlight or identify which ones are you going through. Are you going through any of them? It may be not right now, but when you get stressed, do you recognize any of these symptoms? Okay, because that's the first sign. We want to recognize the symptoms of stress. The sources of stress can be external or internal. Okay, so external would be like work, our family, life changes, like maybe you got a divorce, maybe you got married, maybe you got a new job. Those are life changes. Some external could be unpredictable events, like maybe a car hit you. I had a friend who was driving home and this girl just rammed into, like T-boned her. Well, that she wasn't expecting that, and it wasn't her fault. There was nothing she could have done to prevent it because she didn't even see it coming. But now she's having to deal with it, right? The financial, uh, the injuries, things like that. It could be social too. Internal, these we have a little more control over, guys. Internal are our expectations, what we choose to worry about, our attitude about life and situations, our behaviors, how we choose to behave under the circumstances, and sometimes even our health, because we can choose to eat better, to exercise, to meditate, or we can choose to overeat and, you know, not take care of ourselves. So those are the internal, those are the external. This is the second handout, okay, that you have on the chat that I put the link to. So at home, if you choose to, you can choose to identify the potential sources of your stress. Okay. I moved to San Antonio 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago, a stress for me was work. Why? Because I didn't know anybody here, like nobody. So for me to do programs was going to be me knocking on a lot of doors and introducing myself to a lot of people so they can let me in and present to their audience. Okay. Um, it could be family. You know, if we have somebody, a child acting out, or maybe a child stressed or depressed or sick, or a family member. Life changes, unpredictable events like my friend who got hit by a car, or social problems, maybe with our friends, or internal. Identify, do you have any internal? Are you maybe a perfectionist? Do you expect everything to be perfect and just right? Let me tell you, people who are perfectionists tend to be, in general, and please don't be upset with me for saying that, it's just an observation, not a fact. No, I'm noting observation, not a fact. They tend to be moodier most of the time. They tend to be very moody and judgmental because nobody can do things right like they can. And when other people don't do things right like they can, they get in a bad mood because nobody is as good as they are in their mind. Okay. Those are people who tend to be perfectionists. And then they're always stressed out because guess what? Nobody's perfect. And even they fail at being perfect. So now they're upset at themselves for not doing things just right. So, what are your expectations? What are you worried about? Okay. What is your attitude? You analyze that. Okay. What are your behaviors? Okay. And what is your health like? Are you taking care of it? Okay. So, this is a handout you can kind of explore. Um, I like to I like to do this with my, where am I? I like to do this with my family. Um, because I do have a spouse who's in law enforcement. So he is on hypervigilant mode 99% of the time. And I have to tell him, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. You're home. When you're home, you're not a law enforcement officer, you're a dad and you're a spouse, right? So it's fun. Did anybody have anything? I hear somebody. Did anybody have anything to say? Let me see. On the chat. Okay, so ask yourself 2 questions. When you're stressed, is it important? Is it going to matter in a week, in a day, in a month? Is it going to matter? Really? Is it going to matter? So is it important? Because sometimes realistically, we worry about stuff that is not going to matter to anybody else, that it's going to pass and nothing bad happened. Okay. So is it important? and can you control it? If you cannot control the situation, there is truly no point to stress out. Okay, so is it important and can you control it? I asked my mother, is the weather important? Sure, if there's a cyclone or a hurricane. A little rain, doesn't bother me none. Can you control it? Absolutely not. So I told her, relax. I'm driving, we're gonna be all good, right? But we have to think about those things. Finances, are those important? Absolutely. You know, if you don't pay your rent or your mortgage, you're gonna get evicted. Can you control it? Maybe, I don't know. Are we spending money in other areas of our lives? Do we need to get a second job? You know, how can we control it? So those are the two things to ask yourself. Is it important and can you control it? Okay. So important and controllable. How can you change your situation to reduce the stress? How can you get away or prevent the stress? So there's two things. Can you alter it or can you avoid it? So can somebody give me an example of a stressor that you've seen maybe recently that you can alter? What is one stressor that we can alter? What do you think? These symptoms could,
Your
any,
perception.
your perception, absolutely.
Being
One,
inflexible mind.
yes, absolutely. We can, I always tell my spouse, and okay, I always use my family because I'm sure they use me and I use myself too. My husband narrates every drive we have. Okay, he's a narrator because he's a cop. So, oh, he didn't put the signal light. Oh, did you see how he cut him off? Oh, did you? And I'm like, oh my God, mind your business. I'm like, drive, you know, stay away from crazy drivers. And I don't want to hear what they did wrong because you're not on the clock and you're not going to stop them. So he can alter his behavior because all of a sudden he starts stressing everybody else in the car out, right? I mean, thank God he doesn't like flip the birdie or nothing like that. But you know what I mean? He's arguing with drivers who cannot hear him, right? Because his perception is he's the best driver in the world and they're all doing wrong. So absolutely, Maribel, alter your perception. You know, not everybody's going to be as good as driver as he is. If people maybe at grocery stores, they're walking too slow, they walked in front of you, if they were talking too loud, if they wore a mask, if they don't wear a mask, it's like, OMG, don't worry about it. We're stressing over things, you know, those can't be altered. You know what I can alter? I can alter if I'm stressed, like when let's say like Juanita mentioned, we're stressed over COVID, wear the darn mask. If I'm stressed over the new variants, wear the mask, right? Plain, it's as simple as that. I can all, and that'll maybe relieve my stress if I'm stressed over. I got the vaccine, I wear the mask. Whatever everybody else does, it's their business, right? So absolutely, our perception, we can alter our perception, our expectations. You know what? I expect my house to be clean because I Swiffer every day because I have a dog that sheds like crazy. It got to the point where I wanted to give the dog away. And then I said, calm down. There's nothing wrong with a little dog shedding dog fur on my floor. Nothing bad is going to happen. We'll be okay. And the dog is wonderful. And I altered my expectation about the dog shedding because he can't control it, and neither can I. And that was that. I'm no longer stressed over my dog shedding. Okay. So we need to also, like they say, chill out and relax. How can we get away from things? What about avoiding? What would be something we could avoid? And people sometimes think avoiding is a bad thing, but it's not always bad. If you're avoiding something that's going to be harmful, like stress is harmful. So how can we avoid it?
Boundaries.
Boundaries. Absolutely. So like here, like in the, some of the things that they mentioned here in the curriculum, if we go out to eat, I can tell you one of my stressors going out with my family to eat is how much it's going to cost, because it could easily cost $200 in one sitting. Why? Because I've got two grown boys that eat like, I don't know, like this is their last meal or something. And then my husband and then me, and you know, we're a big family. So I have to set boundaries and say, you're not going to order anything above $15. That's my boundary. Do not. order anything above 15, because if I let them, they'll order a $25 plate, right? What other boundary can we set? Because that is my stressor. If we go out and eat, it's going to break me. What would be another stressor? How about at work? How about at work? Those are hard. I think at work it's hard to say no, especially if it's the boss, right? So, has anybody ever said no to their boss? My boss is going to hear this recording, but I have. I'll go first. I love saying yes because I love my job. So there was one grant that we used to buy stuff for our programs that I've been doing for years. This year I said no. But she is a really good person. And she had the decency to ask me why, instead of getting upset with me or just judging that I was trying to be lazy. She said, "Can I ask why?" I'm like, "Absolutely." I said, "We're coming out of a pandemic. That grant has an expectation of serving X amount of children by a certain amount of time. And I don't know if we're going to go back, if they're going to allow us to go do programming. And kids rarely join our online programs. I'll be honest, they rarely do. Adults do, but kids usually don't. They do more the face-to-face. I said, I don't think I will meet the expectations of the grant, and I don't want to lose it. So this year, for the first time in 8 years, I have to say no. Okay. That was that. And we have to explain it. I wasn't being lazy, and I'm glad she asked. Can I ask why not? So it's okay if you're feeling overwhelmed or you feel it's something. In my mind, I said, I'm not going to be able to achieve that goal. I've always achieved the goal of that grant, and I don't want it right now under the circumstances fail. And then have the organization lose the grant. That would be horrible. And she was okay with that. So it's okay to say no, guys. What else? So I avoided that one, right? So what else can we avoid? What about family? Something with the family that stresses us out.
Avoiding certain conversations or topics.
Right. My sister and my best friend, the two people who are not in my immediate family, we don't see eye to eye in a whole lot of things. But I love them to death. So we make it a point to say we will not talk politics or religion. It's a rule of thumb. We can talk about where we're going to vacation, about our kids, about our spouses, about ourselves, about how we feel, but we're not going to talk about what's on the news, because if not, we're going to end up arguing. And I love them too much. So yes, avoiding certain topics that we know may create drama in the relationships, and that is avoiding. But why do we need to talk about them? Our relationship isn't about that anyway. Our relationship is about our love for each other, right? And our connection, what connects us, not what divides us. So yes, that's excellent. Avoid certain conversations if we know they are a source of, sensitive issues. Now, should we avoid, if we're having high blood pressure, should we avoid that because it's stressful to go to the cardiologist? No, right? Not that. We don't want to avoid that. We want to take care of ourselves. So wonderful. Okay, alter. So ask others to change or be willing to do the same. If they're not willing to change, can we change? Right? Yes. Sometimes, if I tell my husband stop narrating the darn drives, I even volunteer to drive just so he's not arguing with the other drivers. But even when I'm driving, he's narrating my drive, and it annoys the heck out of me. So since he's not willing to change, evidently, I chose to ignore his comments. He is who he is. Communicate feelings openly, guys. Sometimes people don't know they're hurting us or stressing us out if we don't tell them. To them, their behavior is so normal and logical, and once we tell them how their behavior affects us, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I did not know. Okay. And vice versa. If you don't know you're doing something harmful to other people or causing them stress, if they don't tell you, you're not going to know. And so you're not going to stop. Right. So communicate feelings openly. Don't be afraid to say what you're thinking or feeling. Of course, you're not going to be like, you're a jerk. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're saying, hey, you know what? Whenever this happens, this is how I feel. I wish you wouldn't do it, take action. If something let's say some people, I hear a lot of this. Oh, I'm so stressed about my weight. I gained a lot of weight during COVID. Um, I don't know what to do, and my clothes doesn't fit. And now I'm back at the office, and nothing in my closet fits because of COVID. I gained weight during COVID. The gyms were shut down. Okay, let's take action. How about now that we can go out and exercise and eat better so we can start fitting into our clothes again? Take action. Complaining isn't going to fix it, right? And like Marvell mentioned, state limits in advance. State limits in advance. That is so important, to set expectations. I think it sets you up for success in your relationships, at work, because you're saying, okay, this is what I can handle, and this is how I'll do well. More than that, I don't think I'll be as effective. Okay, so I wonder if Guadalupe is here. Guadalupe's not here, is she? Okay, probably not. And I know I've met Guadalupe virtually only, but I know what she's talking about because we work for the same organization, and she's fairly new. So I feel for her because I was in her shoes when I first started. You just can't say no, and you're overwhelmed. But we need to set limits, and it's okay. It's called self-care. And our bosses set limits with us. They give us a minimum of, hey, you got to do a minimum of X amount of presentations. And okay, so you do that, and if you can't, you explain why. I need help because obviously I haven't been able to meet your expectations, so I need help figuring this out. Ooh, where am I? Here we go. Avoid. So avoid, plan ahead. You hate traffic, plan ahead, get up earlier so you don't hit traffic, or leave later. If you're, that's what I do. I leave later because I can, but take control. Again, take control. You hate your weight. You want to avoid being, and again, I'm just going to use weight. You don't want to be obese. Let's say you're not obese yet, but you want to avoid it. Okay, let's take control. Let's learn how to eat healthier. Let's learn how to exercise in a way that we're not going to get injured, and actually enjoy it. Say no. Hey, I've already got a lot of things on my plate. I can't commit to doing that because I'm going to end up failing you. Shorten your task list. You know how we have a list of tasks? Shorten it up. Shorten it up. You know what? I usually put about 10 to 15 things, but sometimes I have to say, you know what? I'm only going to do 5. The rest are going to have to wait. Shorten it up. Unimportant and uncontrollable. Okay, remember we asked, is it important and is it controllable? Okay, so accept how you can accept things as they are and learn to live with the stress. My dog's going to shed. My dog's going to shed, and I would stay up till midnight sweeping and mopping every night because of that dog and his slobber. He's old. He's 13 years old now. So he's an old dog. He's going to slobber. Now he actually pees. He gets up and pees. He's a little old dog. So I was at the point where I'm like, I'm going to put this dog to sleep. And I'm like, no, just grab the mop. Just grab the mop. And poor thing, he never used to do that. So I accepted his age and his messes. And, I'm loving on him until, until he can't get up anymore. And I do have to put him to sleep if he can't do that. But, you can accept certain situations. I accept my husband being a pain in my butt when we're driving. I've accepted it. Adapt. How can we change in order to live with the stress? So what can we do? Janice, Juanita, Maribel, what can we do to adapt? Like to maybe reduce the stress despite our circumstances, besides accepting it in our mind, because we may accept it, but it still may irk us a little, even though we've accepted it. So how can we adapt and just kind of like relax anyway? What are some of the things that we can do to kind of relax, get on relax mode?
I think for me, it's my perception. So like in the example of your husband, I would maybe work myself. I would be like, okay, he must really love us. And, he pays attention to these things because he really cares about our safety.
Yeah.
So trying to see things in a new perception or in a new light, or finding the humor in things that might irk me or bother me, and maybe seeing that, that person, that's just who they are. That's how they were created. What I think is annoying is maybe just who they really are, the little butterflies that just go from flower to flower, or, you know. But yeah, I think perception has a lot to do with it for me. Because if not, I fall into like cognitive distortions and a warped view of reality. And it's not really that warped.
Correct. Correct. That's very, very good. I don't know if I mentioned to this group, but his brother, my brother-in-law, you know, he got into, you know, we talked about behaviors. So when he's stressed, he would drink. So he became an alcoholic. He did become an alcoholic, and to where he drank every single day, in excess. So he was a functioning alcoholic. So that's the behavior he adopted because of the stress. Okay. And I asked him one time, I said, what's the first thing you think about when you wake up? I said, tell me, go. I said, don't think about it, just tell me, what do you think? And he said, when I wake up, I think, dang it, I gotta go to work. That was his first thing he would think about. And I said, so can we flip it and say, thank you, I get to go to work? And he's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm just asking. I said, can we switch it to thank you, I get to go to work? I'm not unemployed. I'm providing for my family. He's a nurse. I'm like, I'm using my degree. I have benefits. I get paid really well. I'm like, can we switch it to I get to go to work instead of dang it, I have to go to work? He's like, okay, I'll try. I'm like, yeah, it's the attitude, the perception, the thought. And now he is sober, 6 months. You know, he's lost weight. His wife lost weight because he's not stressing her out, you know, and just they look so much better all around. But his perception had to change because everything was so negative all the time, you know. And I'm like, if you don't want to be a nurse, don't be a nurse. He tried it. He quit being a nurse and went to work for FedEx. No joke. He's like, man, working in the warehouse is horrible. Do you want to be a nurse now? Yes. And he went back to being a nurse. And people were questioning, why would a nurse come work at the warehouse? You know, why would anybody go backwards in their mind, being backward? Because you make less money and you're working physical labor. And he's like, no, man, you know what? I appreciate my job now. And it's like, okay, let's adapt to, yes, you work 12-hour shifts. You got to adapt, you know, but you only work 4 days a week, not 5, you know, stuff like that. So we accept, talk with somebody. You know, it's always nice to have a friend to talk to, or your spouse, or whomever you feel comfortable expressing yourself with. And maybe sometimes if we just want to have a whining session, that's okay. It's okay. You get to whine and complain, and then yeah, it kind of, I feel better now. Practice positive self-talk. Guys, there's plenty of people who are going to talk bad about us. You don't be one of them to talk bad about yourself. Okay? Don't call yourself ugly or fat or old or no. You're young and you're beautiful and you're hot, and always positive self-talk, guys. You're smart. You always, because trust me, there's plenty out there in the world that's going to tell us we're otherwise. We don't need to feed into that negativity. So positive self-talk. Learn from your mistakes. I mean, when bad things happen, learn from them. As simple as that. You know, that's the best thing. Growth. Every time there's change, everything there's to me, change is an opportunity to grow and learn something new. The pandemic was real hard on a lot of people because we had to go virtual, and our job is not virtual. Our job is face to face all the time. Well, now, you know, we learned how to do Zoom conferences, and now we get people in some of our conferences from out of state even. I learned to do videos on Powtoon, which I'm super proud of, you know, because now they're super cute and I get to post them. I would have never even tried doing that if it wasn't for the pandemic, to be honest. So just learn from things that happen that are not good, you know, and see stress as an opportunity, you know, just, you know, something stresses us out. We have a chore to do, something new, and I know it's new to us and we don't know how to do it well, but you know what? We're going to learn from it and grow from it. Adapting, adjust expectations, like Maribel said, be grateful, wake up. One suggestion is when you wake up, think of 3 things that you're grateful for. 3, at least 3. If you can think of more, awesome, but at least 3. Okay. So the first thing, thank you for, and think, I don't know, your family, your health, your house, your food on your table, whatever it is, your job, you know, whatever, think of 3 things. Use humor and laughter. Maribel mentioned that. Have a sense of humor, you know. Um, People are different. I have to laugh at my husband's, quirkiness and hypervigilance. And then I have to laugh at my other son who could care less about anything. He just like, don't worry about anything. And you know what's funny is that everything works out. I was stressed moving to San Antonio and I didn't think he was going to do well academically, much less under a pandemic. Honor roll, honor roll. I was like, how did that happen? He's like, why are you stressed, mom? What? Everything's going to be fine. He just thinks that way. He's a very positive thinker. Be physically active, guys. Whatever you enjoy doing, but your body needs to kind of move and release all those positive hormones that are, or chemicals in the brain that are going to help us have that happy endorphin feeling. Okay. So I did Zumba yesterday. So I have a blast doing Zumba. Zumba is just like my chance to dance without people judging me and my husband having to take me out to dance because he's not going to do that either. So that's my adaptation. I dance in Zumba because we don't go to dances. So, but go walk, go play with your dog outside, whatever the case, but be physically active and then learn to relax. I'm working on that one. I did 15 minutes of yoga after Zumba. And then I was like, okay, I mean, I'll work on it. I'll work on it. It was like too much, like low key, and I'm used to being very hyper, but learn to relax. Whatever it may not be, yoga, it could be praying, meditating. Some people relax doing their what is with flowers or gardening, whatever helps you relax, but learn to relax and not think of your problems and responsibilities. Okay. So choosing the right coping strategy is super important. Okay. Yoga works for 99.999% of the people to relax. It stresses me out because it's so low key. Like I freak out. I need something more hyper, more moving. So use the right one for you. Periodically evaluate the effectiveness of whatever you chose. Okay. So some people choose to read. Is it working? Are you relaxing? Are you not thinking of your responsibilities and problems? Yes or no? If it's not working, pick something else. If it's working, keep doing it. Replace ineffective strategies. Some people choose exercise to relax, but you know what ends up happening? They stress out. Oh my God, I gotta go to the gym. Oh my God, I gotta go work out. I haven't gone all week. And they start stressing over the one thing that was supposed to help them relax. Right? So no. If exercise is not the way you're gonna relax, pick a different one. Use exercise for health reasons, but obviously that's not your relaxation because you're stressing about it, about doing it or not doing it. So always evaluate what you're using to relax. Some people may want to keep a stress journal. Write down what causes your stress. What are your triggers? Okay. How did you feel? Example, my heart starts beating, like my beats per minute. I can be sitting down, and if I'm stressed, it'll be like at 110 beats per minute sitting down. That is crazy high. That is a physical reaction that I have. Some people may get the headaches or they feel like super sad and they want to cry, whatever. Maybe you want to journal that. How you acted in response. Were you all emotional? Were you super irritable and biting your kids' heads off? Were you isolated and not wanting to talk to anybody? Journal that. See, hey, how am I reacting to my stressors? And then how are my coping strategies working? Are they being effective? If they're not, we need to know. Like you need to know, because then why keep doing it if it's not working, right? So if you feel that you've already tried different strategies and they're not being effective, look for professional help. I used my brother-in-law as an example. He's been sober 6 months. With that said, remember that he started drinking as a response to his anxiety. So now he is on anxiety and antidepressants. He is, okay, low doses, but they're working very effectively. He's going to therapy. He is a veteran, so he's got that going on. He's got some PTSD. So rather than drinking now, he is taking his medication and he's going to therapy. Okay, because the drinking wasn't working. It was creating more problems than what it was fixing. Okay, so he did seek professional help, and it's okay to do that. Powerful, yeah. So it's okay. We unfortunately see mental health as kind of like, oh, well, you're just weak, or, no. If you have diabetes, you're going to take your medication. If you have a mental health illness, please, and you need medication, please take your medication, right? It's what you need to get better. So, and he is going to therapy, and he hopes to one day be off his medication. And hopefully he will, without going back into the drinking, right? That's what we want, but he's healthy now, thank God. So, summary, understand where your stressors are coming from, identify them, evaluate them. Are they important? Can you fix it? Can you even control it? And develop your own strategies that work for you, okay? And this can be applied if you want to help family members deal with stress, okay? And you can share this with them. And this is the last slide. If you have goals, always remember to make your goals. In the case of time management or in the case of stress management, make your goals what they call SMART. Be specific. Make them measurable. Make them achievable. Make them rewarding, and make them time bound. Those are the things, when you set goals, make them very specific like that. Make them SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, rewarding, and time bound. That's going to know if you achieved that particular goal, right? So, guys, any questions before?
I
Use
went
this
back.
method with career planning with the clients. Absolutely.
Yes.
Mhm.
I went back to the emails and I'm not seeing where the attachment is for the
Oh, to the
papers.
chat?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, for the like you're using examples of different like unit 2 manage stress handout 2 to 3.
Mhm.
Where did you email those?
Well, for this one, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
For unit. Oh no, I put it on the chat. I put the link on the chat.
On the chat. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Awesome.
So if you go
Thank
to
you.
the very top of the chat, the link is there. And then I can always go, if you want to use the QR code, let me put it. If you want to use your phone.
Yeah,
Let me,
that would be good.
okay. Oh, there it is. There it is. Can you see it? See if you can open it up.
I got it.
You got
Thank
it?
you. Mhm.
And I'll be happy to email a PDF format of this presentation, guys. So you can just have it for your records to those who participated. So,
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's
Absolutely.
been very, very helpful in bringing awareness.
I'm glad, Maribel. And like I said, I know some of this may be common sense, yet, we struggle in our country with a lot of depression and anxiety. So obviously we haven't mastered stress management, because we do have that. We see it in the kids. We see it in adults, in the elderly, especially now that they were more isolated. So these strategies, if we put them into practice, they surprisingly are very effective. We just need to take the time to do it instead of just bury our heads in the sand and pretend nothing's going south or something's going wrong. But okay, guys, well, that is it. If there's no more questions, there is a QR here, guys, and I'm gonna put for the course evaluation. If you can fill it out, I'd be super appreciative. And I'm gonna also put, yeah, I'm gonna end the show. Let me see, can y'all see me? Okay. I'm gonna put the link to, if you don't have a phone, I'll put the link to this survey in the chat. Let me do that now. Okay, that link is for the survey. Okay, any questions before we close out the session? We're good. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. And what's today? Oh, no. Next week, remember, we don't have, if you see the schedule, next week we don't have one. We're going to be at a state conference. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. And I'll send you a reminder. Okay? Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye, guys.